Sound check, test 1 2 1 2. Make sure our sound is good on YouTube. And where are we? Sounds good on YouTube. Yes. Let's go live over on Rumble X, LinkedIn. Yes. Let's go live on Facebook. Yes. We good on YouTube? Looks like we are good on YouTube. Are we good on Rumble X, LinkedIn? Yes. Are we good on Facebook? Yes. Now we're just waiting for LinkedIn to populate. Oh, we don't have a title here. And we need a title over here. Title on LinkedIn. Make sure we are verbal here. Let's go live. We're live over on IG. We're live on TikTok. Good morning. Good morning, TikTok. Good morning. Are we live? Good morning, Instagram. We'll be starting in a second. I just got to get all the streams going. I'm live on seven different platforms here. So if y'all see me looking at different screens here, I'm just making sure everything's working how it's supposed to. We are live on YouTube, check. Rumble, check. X, check. LinkedIn, check. Facebook, check. Instagram, check. TikTok, check. Good morning, everybody. Y'all see what the topic is. A couple people have asked about this, and I'm going to address it from multiple angles here today. And I want to make sure I address it in a way that makes the most sense for us to get the most value from this time that we have here today, this conversation. So the topic is going to be this whole concept of what some people heard versus what is actually true versus what's actually possible, and what we all need to know and do about it is the topic here today. So this is all around the concept that Donald Trump put out there, that he said on the campaign trail, and I will verify he did say this. He said, I'm going to give the police full immunity to do their jobs. That was what he said somewhere on the campaign trail during the 2020 campaign. And many of you heard about it. Some of you actually heard him say it. Some of you saw, I bet most of you just saw the clip of him saying it. You didn't hear the full context of what he said, but that's completely fine. Even if you just got the clip, even if you got it out of context, he did say it. He did say those words out of his mouth, and we're going to address all of that here today. So let me make sure I'm looking at the right screen over here on this device. I got this device and I got this device. So I'm looking at different lenses because I have more than one screen going at the same time. Let me introduce myself, then we'll get into this. My name is Dre Baldwin. Many know me as Dre all day. Former Now You're Pro athlete, author of 35 books on 4 TEDx talks, created this brand called Work on Your Game. What we do over here, if you ask people who work for me, they say, we love the fact, Dre, that you are straight to the point, no BS, no fluff. You keep it real, and you don't talk around stuff. And that's exactly what I'm going to do here today. We work with people. We work with sales teams, entrepreneurs, business professionals, people who are transitioning from one career to another, such as an athlete to an entrepreneur, leaving the government, leaving the corporate world, going into starting their own businesses. Those are the type of people that we work with. If you want to learn more about that, click on the links in my bio. They go to Work on Your Game University. You can find out more about me. That's not really the topic here today. What we're going to talk about is this current event of this full immunity thing. So first of all, a lot of people have been asking, not a lot, but a few of you have been asking me questions about the Trump cabinet picks. And I don't have a ton to say about a lot of them, but one of them that is a little bit related to what we're talking about here today when it comes to the police is this guy, Pete Hegseth, who Trump is trying to appoint to being on top of basically the military position, because Pete Hegseth was in the military. And one of the things that is being lobbed against him right now is that he had a SA, a sexual impropriety charge several years ago, that now it was out there then. It was in the news back then, but now that he's being nominated to Trump's cabinet, is come out again. And this really goes to a different topic that I talked about a week or two ago, which is the media. Now, how the media simply doesn't do their job anymore. And we're going to talk about this. I'm going to talk about, I already told you why journalism is on its deathbed. I'm going to do another topic in the future on why the mainstream media is falling apart, whether we're talking to journalists or just a TV show person like The View or NBC or CBS or 60 Minutes. I'm going to do a whole lot talking about that. And I will dive deeper into this Hegseth situation because it is emblematic. It is a good example of how the mainstream media is no longer doing their job. And there's a reason why generally people do not trust them anymore. We already know that people don't trust the mainstream media anymore, because if they did trust the mainstream media, then everyone would have bought the stories that were being told and the quote unquote facts being told about Donald Trump. And there's no way he would have won the election. The fact that he won the election should be proof to everyone that the mainstream media is no longer believed. People may still hear them, but they are no longer believed at the level that they used to be believed. And again, I'm going to do a future live on that. So if y'all want to hear me talk about that, just put media in the comments and I will talk about that on a future. I already got the points laid out, but I'll get to that. Today, we need to talk about the police, because there's several angles I want to take on this topic. I want to make sure I get through the material, and then we get to you all's comments. So all right, now that I already said that, first of all, let me do some. Good morning, Brittany. Good to see you here. Thank you again. Brittany's moderating here, so y'all don't be talking crazy in the comments over on TikTok. And if you do, then Brittany's going to take care of you. So, all right, first of all, let me be the Trump whisperer first, and let me interpret the situation. First of all, let me tell you the logical interpretation of what he said. Then I'll do the Trump interpretation of what Trump said. First of all, Donald Trump, as president of the United States, does not have the power. He cannot give immunity to the police, because the police are regulated at the state level, not at the federal level. Therefore, what Donald Trump said is not actually possible. All right, so what he said is not possible. He cannot do that. Joe Biden cannot give immunity to the police. Barack Obama could not do it. Donald Trump can't do it. And whoever's president in the future does not have the power to do that, as long as the laws and situations stay as they are, which I assume they will, that the police are regulated by the state. So if you live in the state of Florida, what the police do are under the jurisdiction of, at the highest level, the governor and the courts in the state of Florida, but the president has no say in what state police do. So what Donald Trump said is not even possible. So all of you who got reactive and said, oh man, Donald Trump says he's going to give full immunity to the police. What are we supposed to do if the police come and attack us? We're going to get to all of that here today. So now I just logically answered the question. All right. So if all I wanted to do was just logically answer the question, I could end the live right now, because there's nothing else to say, because he can't do it. Now let's talk about this in an interpretation way. I've said this 20 times about Donald Trump. I'm going to say it 300 more times, because people need to hear the same thing more than once for it to get through your heads. Donald Trump is a salesman. I think all of you understand that. Whether you like him or not, he's a salesman. He's been a salesman for 40 years. And what salespeople do is they use this term that we call puffery. Puffery is a legal term that can actually be used in court. What puffery is when you take an accepted reality of a person, place, or thing, or a product or a service that you're offering, and you puff it up to make it seem bigger than it actually is. So when a used car salesman tells you that this car is the best car that money can buy, and it's a 1999 Honda Civic, is that the best car you could actually buy with your money? Maybe not. You could probably find something better for the amount of money that you're going to spend, but you can't go and take that used car salesman to court when you realize that the Honda Civic that you bought was a 25-year-old car that's not really that good. Why? Because the used car salesman is allowed to puff up his product or service in order to sell it. Again, it's called puffery. It's a real thing. It's derived from the animal kingdom, where a bird will puff out its feathers, like the male birds will puff out their feathers to show themselves off to the female birds for courting purposes. This is a real thing. It's a legal term. Donald Trump uses puffery all the time. It's like his normal way of speaking, to the point that he probably doesn't even realize that he's doing it. So when he says, I'm going to give police full immunity, what is he doing? He's speaking in metaphors. He is not speaking literally. Many of you tend to take, most of us, and I am one of these people as well, most of us tend to take the things that people say literally. And some of you do this to a fault, to where you don't quite understand the communication of the person who you're listening to. Not everybody talks this way. So when I'm speaking, I'm saying things literally. And if I'm being metaphorical, I will tell you I'm being metaphorical. But Donald Trump speaks metaphorically all the time. So when you're listening to him, you have to turn off your literal brain, and you have to understand what image is he trying to get across. He's very good at it. This is the reason why he won 3 straight Republican nominations and at least 2 national elections. Because he's able to put images in people's minds, even people who don't like him, he puts images in their minds. For example, there's some of you listening to this right now who do not like Donald Trump, didn't vote for Donald Trump, and you wish he hadn't won, yet the things that he said, you still remember them. Now, tell me one thing Kamala Harris said that you remember. I'll wait. Tell me one thing Joe Biden said that you remember. I'm just waiting for somebody to answer that question. Tell me one thing Joe Biden or Kamala Harris said on the campaign trail that you remember? What could be, should have been. Yeah, that's one. What else? What else? Unburdened by what has been. She did say that. The duality. That's a word that she used all the time. Aspirations, ambitions, and dreams and hopes. All right, so I'm answering the question for y'all. But can any of you remember anything Kamala Harris said on $6,000 child tax credit? She did say that. $25,000 to buy a house. She did say that. Anything that she said. Can y'all remember anything that she said that was like anything that was like part of her offering as the candidate that you actually remember? You remember a lot of things Trump said. Even if you don't like him, you remember a lot of things he said. Can you remember anything Joe Biden said? Tell me something Joe Biden said. Joe Biden's the president right now. Tell me one thing Joe Biden said that you remember. Kamala, that was I gave y'all an easy question, Kamala, because we've been listening to her for the last 100 days because she was running. And the election just ended a few weeks ago. Tell me one thing Joe Biden said you remember. Anybody? Can anybody? And Kevin said, being a good manipulator does not mean you're a good presidential candidate. I'm going to challenge you on that, Kevin. I'm going to respond to that in 1 second, Kevin. I'm glad you made that point. I'm going to address that in 1 second. Anybody remember anything Joe Biden said? Joe Biden's the president right now. Can anybody remember one thing Joe Biden said? Come on, man. That's a good one. Yes, that's what he said. Come on, man. Yes, he did say it. Only garbage I see is his supporters. He did say that too. All right. Those are only two things y'all can remember. Nobody remembers anything Joe Biden said. And he's the president right now. But if I ask you to name anything Trump said, all of you could name off a list of things, even if you don't like him. Now, what does that mean? What does that mean? That means that Donald Trump is very good at persuasion. Because see, part of persuasion, ladies and gentlemen, is not necessarily getting you to do what or getting you to take a certain action. Sometimes persuasion just means getting you to remember something. All of you respond. Like if I had done this live and it was about Joe Biden, it wouldn't be nearly as many people listening to me right now because I mentioned Joe Biden. Joe Biden is not, his name is not persuasive enough to draw attention, even though he's the actual president of the United States. But when I use Donald Trump's name, that gets the attention not only of people who like him, but also people who hate him. That's persuasion. That matters. And that's the thing. So what I believe it was Kevin, the name, he said, being a master manipulator does not mean you are good for being president. I think it was something like that you said there, Kevin. You can tell me if I paraphrase that correctly. And I would challenge that and say, yes, it does. It does mean that you're good for president. And I'll explain why. Because the presidential election in the United States is a sales job. It is not it becomes a policy, legislation, governing job after you win. But in order to get the job, you have to sell. Barack Obama was a great salesperson. George W. Bush, great salesperson. Donald Trump, great salesperson. Joe Biden, if you want to say he was a great salesperson, fine. I would say that everybody who ran against Trump, from Hillary to Biden to Kamala, the only real selling they did was just selling against Donald Trump. I don't think any of them had to be a good salesperson to have a chance. All three had a chance. Now, one of them won, technically Joe Biden, but none of them was really a good salesperson. I don't think Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, or Kamala Harris would have won an election against any other Republican candidate that we've seen over the last, 30, 40 years. I don't think any of them would have won had they been running against anyone other than Trump, because I don't think any of them is a good salesperson. I don't think Hillary's a good salesperson, which is why she couldn't beat Obama. I don't think Biden's a good salesperson, which is why he never got close to the nomination, even in the many times he tried in the past. And I don't think Kamala will win a nomination anytime in the future when she's running against other Democrats, let alone other, again, Hillary couldn't beat other Democrats. Biden couldn't beat Democrats. Kamala couldn't beat Democrats. She got the nomination this year. But if she had to run a full campaign against other Democrats, I don't think she would win because they're not good salespeople. Donald Trump's a great salesperson. And sales is manipulation, contrary to what some of you may think. Many of you may hear this word manipulation and think it's a negative thing. Manipulating people. That means you're kind of like playing them against themselves and playing mind games and using verbal tools and tricks to get people to think something that they don't want to think and kind of working them somehow mentally. And the answer is yes, that's exactly what it is. That's what sales is. Sales is manipulation, folks. So anybody in here a salesperson? Put the word sales in the comments if you are actually a salesperson, and then tell me if I got this right or if I got it wrong. Any salespeople in here disagree? I'm a salesperson. Now, I didn't mention the word sales when I told you what I do, but in order for me to do any of those things, I have to sell something. I had to sell something in order to do any of the things that I do. If I want you to read my book, I got to sell you the book. If I want you to get coached by me, I got to sell you the coaching. If I want to get on stage and give a speech, I have to sell the speech. The fact that any of the things that I do, I'm good at, don't matter until or unless I'm able to sell them. And manipulation is part of the game. And when I say manipulation, that doesn't necessarily mean a negative thing. All right. It doesn't necessarily mean a negative thing. Veronica said, salesperson lie too. Well, Veronica, are you a salesperson? You should be. If you have a job, you're a salesperson. How'd you get the job? You had to go to the interview and do what? Sell yourself. Everybody's a salesperson. The unfortunate reality is that many of you don't think you're salespeople. That doesn't mean you're not a salesperson. It just means you're bad at it. If you don't think you're a salesperson, it just means you're a bad salesperson. Because everybody who's good at sales knows that they're a salesperson and they get better at it. Everybody's a salesperson. If you have a job, you have to sell yourself to get the job. If you are in a relationship, you had to sell yourself to get that guy or get that girl. If you have friends, you had to sell yourself to get those people to be your friend. If you have followers on social media, you had to sell yourself to get people to follow you on social media. Everything we do in life is sales. So if you don't think you're a salesperson, I would push back and say you are a salesperson. Again, you're just unconsciously selling. I suggest you start doing it on purpose. All right. All that being said, Donald Trump is an excellent salesperson. And if you asked him, he would say, absolutely, I'm a salesperson. And he would confirm what I just told you. Becoming president of the United States is a sales job. You have to sell the country on voting for you. That's what he has to do. That's what you have to do to win, or everybody has to do it who's trying to win. So getting back to what we're talking about here with immunity, Donald Trump is very good at putting images in people's heads. All of you have plenty of images in your minds based on things you heard Donald Trump say. Again, whether you agreed with him or you disagreed with him, whether you are happy he said it or you are really angry that he said it, or you're confused about why he said it, you don't forget it. That's the point. So remember the whole thing about eating the dogs? Everybody remembers that, right? You remember that he said it. Now, whether it's true or not is actually kind of irrelevant, especially now it's irrelevant. Why? Because he won. All right. The whole point was that you were thinking about it. The whole point was that you couldn't stop talking about it. And that drew more attention to him. So when he said full immunity to police, a lot of people held on to that, even though it's logically impossible. So if all of you were completely logical and completely rational, guess what you would have done? You would have completely dismissed the point as soon as he said it, because it's not possible for him to do it. You would have said, oh, Trump said he's going to give immunity to all police. Well, the president can't do that. Therefore, it doesn't even matter that he said it. You would have completely dismissed it. But many of you are still holding on to the point. And that's my point, is that he was able to manipulate you into still holding on to something that is logically impossible, legally impossible, yet you can't stop talking about it. That is persuasion. And he's very good at it. Again, tell me one thing Joe Biden said you can't forget. Yeah, you voted for him, right? All right. Tell me one thing he said that you can't forget. You can't remember one thing. All right. Joe Biden's not a salesperson. He's a politician. Donald Trump is a salesperson, and he happens to be in politics. Barack Obama is a salesperson and a politician. I'm not saying you can't be both. Joe Biden is a politician. He's not a salesperson. Kamala Harris is a politician. She's not a salesperson. Barack Obama is both. That's why Barack won 2 elections. That's why he was very popular. That's why Barack has fans. I don't think Biden or Kamala really have fans. I think Hillary had a few, because her connection to Bill Clinton and her lifetime in politics. But Barack Obama had real fans because he can sell. All the presidents who had fans can sell. JFK had fans. I wasn't alive then. Bill Clinton, fans. Barack Obama, fans. George W. Bush, fans. Trump, fans. All right. The last 2 Democrats we've seen on the ticket, Biden, Harris, not so much. I don't think so, personally. But anyway, it's not even my main point. So I just interpret it for you. I help you all understand. Actually, let me go further. I didn't finish the second half of it. And I'm going to take all questions and comments at the end, by the way. So any of you leaving comments, I'll get to them at the end. When Donald Trump says I'm going to give full immunity to police, what exactly is he saying? What he's saying is, again, he's speaking metaphorically. The metaphor is, I want all of you voters to understand that we are going to make sure police know they can do their jobs and they're not going to be penalized for doing their jobs. That's what he meant when he said it. That's the metaphor and the picture that he's painting in your head without having to say it in so many words. Now, see, if I was running, this is one of the reasons why I'm not in politics. See, if I was running, I would have spelled it all out like that. The problem with doing that is that, first of all, I would have lost like 80% of the audience, because most people don't like to think. If I wanted to win, then I should do what Trump did, which is say I'm going to give full immunity to police, even though logically that doesn't make any sense for me to even say it. See, that's why I can't be in politics, because I'm a little bit too logical to be a politician, at least at the presidential level. Maybe I could be, city council or something. I could get away with that. But at the federal level, you can't be too logical. You have to speak metaphorically, because that's the only way you can move masses of people. You cannot move masses of people with logic, people, ladies and gentlemen. Why? Because most people don't think logically. You can't move them with logic. It's like speaking a different language to somebody, like speaking Spanish to someone who doesn't know Spanish. You can't do it. It's not going to work. They won't understand anything that you said. So this is the reason why Trump is successful, because many of his, and this is another thing you got to get, is that when you agree with a person and you like them and you have rapport with them, you don't even have to know them, but you feel like you're on the same page as a person, you tend to interpret what they say in a directional way. Directionally means you understand what they're trying to say, even if they didn't say it properly. If you have a 5-year-old child and they're trying to communicate something to you, even if they mess up a few words and don't quite say it perfectly, you still understand what they're trying to say, right? And why is that? Because you love your child and you're trying to help them out. So you understand them directionally, even if they objectively didn't say it perfectly. Now, when you don't like a person, what we do is we tend to prosecute their words. We take every word they say and we try to dissect it and slice it and dice it. And we try to find what's wrong with it so we can attack it. And this is what most people do with Donald Trump. And again, that's persuasive because, again, even if you're disagreeing with him, you're still talking about him. Again, when have anybody ever did that with Joe Biden? Name one thing anybody did that with Joe Biden on. Name one thing. You can't. Because there isn't anything. But with Trump, people do it. People who like him do it. People who dislike him do it. And that is persuasive because, again, you're talking about him. Attention matters when you're trying to win a federal election. You need to get everybody's attention. And you need everyone to have an opinion on you. And this is why everyone has an opinion on Donald Trump, because he's able to get people talking about him, whether you're talking negative or positive. And he has the type of personality, I think we can all agree, that even if a bunch of people are talking negative about him, it doesn't seem to affect him in a negative way. He still can move on and keep doing what he has to do. Not many people are built for that level of scrutiny and can keep going through it, which is why this position ain't for everybody. President, period. Any president. So everybody understanding this. What Trump was saying when he said full immunity is that I want the voters to know that police are going to be able to do their jobs. Now, why would he say that to voters? Because some of you listen to this. If you are specifically black people, we're going to talk specifically to black people. I'm going to do that here today when we talk about police as I get further. And those of you who may be from the hood, even if you're not black, or you're an ally, or you are sympathetic to what you have heard or you believe happens to black people in the hood, what you believe, not necessarily what's true, but what you believe, that you think that might be a bad thing for police to have immunity to go and do their jobs because they might do bad things to people of color or to people, period. Well, here's what I say to that. And if you think giving full immunity to police is a thing, actually, I'm going to get to that when I go further into this. But this whole interpretation is that he's letting the voters know most voters are law-abiding citizens. I would assume most of you listening to this are law-abiding citizens. You don't do anything that would necessarily or directly draw the attention of police officers because you're not doing anything to break the law or even make it look like or feel like you're breaking the law. So cops generally don't pay attention to you. So generally, would you rather the police be able to do their jobs and stop the bad guys, or do you want them not be able to do their jobs and stop the bad guys? I think most of you would rather the police be able to stop the bad guys because, again, no matter who you are, if you're a law-abiding citizen, for the most part, you don't deal with police. I mean, that's just what it is. And again, I'm going to talk to the black people in a second. Let me continue. So I mentioned the race hustlers yesterday, and that many other race hustlers went and played their race game. And they're the ones who made sure that you knew about this whole thing. When he said the full immunity thing, y'all understand that presidential candidates, they give like hundreds of speeches over the course of a campaign. Trump gave hundreds of speeches. He said thousands of words, probably millions of words over the course of his campaign. You didn't hear about every single word that he said. You only heard about the ones that the media wanted you to know about. I doubt many of you watched every speech that Trump gave or every speech that Kamala gave. You just found the clips and you heard the stuff that the media told you should pay attention to. This is one of the ones that they grabbed. Oh, he said full immunity to police. Well, that's a bad thing. You can't give full immunity to police. That's a bad thing because it's going to hurt people in certain communities. See, that's the race hustlers playing their race game. The media, there are many people in the media who are race hustlers. And when I do my live, when I talk about how the mainstream media is falling apart, I'm going to talk about that a little bit more. And I already told you logically the president does not have the power to grant immunity to police. So any of you who thought that, all right, perish the thought is impossible. Next, even if they did this, even if he did, let's say Trump had the power to do this, grant immunity to police, it would only be for, what are they really talking about? They're not talking about writing you a parking ticket or pulling you over for speeding. What he's talking about is the type of violent interactions that, again, the media makes sure that you know about. Those are the things they let you know about. Most police interactions are not violent, but you don't find out about those. You don't hear about those. You only hear about the ones that are violent and they may go wrong in some way. And it has to be the right mix of races and reasons, etc. And they handpick those quote unquote facts. And those are the things they tell you about. And they ignore everything else. And this is the reason why we don't trust the media anymore. How many of you have had a violent interaction with police ever in your life? So put the number in the chat. How many you've had? If you've ever had a violent interaction with police, meaning the police came to you and used physical force against you, meaning they put you down on the ground, or they threw you up against the wall, or you got beat up, or you got shot at, or anything like that, any of those things ever happen, put the number of times you've had a violent interaction with police in your life. Grumpy Fish Farm, you put the number 2. What's your age? Anybody who has a number that's bigger than 0, put your age with the number of violent interactions that you've had. And then I'm going to explain now. Then we're going to go into the second part of what I want to say here today, which is how to deal with police if you feel like you may be. All right, so Mike, you're 62 and you've had 3 interactions. So that means you have 59 years of no interactions with police. So those are exceptions to prove the rule, right? Paul G, you've had 6 interactions with police, you said, and you're 42. All right, were any of those warranted? All right, Paul, would you say you were doing something that led to those interactions, or the cops just decided to pick on you? Grumpy Fish Farms, you're 35, 2 interactions in 35 years. That means you had 33 years of a clean slate, nothing. So these are the questions that I'm asking. Burger, 43 years, 3 interactions. So you had 39 years of nothing. And Denkin KC said, 1, I'm 56. I'm a criminal defense attorney. As a result, congratulations. You got 56 years of no problems. I get it. 45 years old. All right. Paul G said you were in the wrong all 6 times, Paul, or just once? James Hendrick says 37. You've had at least 10 violent interactions, like physically violent with police 10 times. Now, let me ask you, James, were you doing something that led to the police paying attention to you? At 37, that's a lot of interactions with police. And Chazin said, just because you articulate yourself well doesn't mean you aren't saying stupid shit. Actually, I agree with you, Chazin. You're correct about that. That doesn't mean that I'm not either. It doesn't mean that what I'm saying is not accurate. And it is accurate, because if it's inaccurate, you should be leaving a comment telling me what I got wrong. That's what you should actually say. So what you're saying there is a logically correct, factually correct, but contextually is incorrect. And Peace said, 1, pulled over for traffic. He had his hand on his gun. That's not a violent interaction. Did he pull it out? Did he point it at you? Did he fire it? That's not a violent interaction. Cops had their hands on their guns. I've been pulled over by a cop who walked up with his hand on his gun, but he didn't pull it out because I didn't give him a reason to. Berger said, all 3 times I was under the age of 28. My question is, did you do something that led to that attention? That's my question. So anyway, I'll address more comments when we get to the end here. So let's talk about if you are a person who feels threatened by the presence of police and you are concerned with even the idea of police having immunity from the president, which again is not possible. Police already have a certain amount of immunity already, qualified immunity as police anyway. But if you're a black person, or you're a person in the hood, or you're a person who feels somehow, some way threatened by the presence of police, how do you deal with police? Okay. This applies to all people, but when I first came up with this, I was thinking specifically about black people who tend to, what's the word I want to use here? They tend to emotionalize and expand on this whole concept of police, and police are going to do this, and I feel threatened by police. And yesterday we talked about the defunding the police. It's all blown out of proportion, as you can see by even the people here who are talking about the times they have had interactions with police. Most of you, these are few and far between interactions. You're 40, 50, 60 years old. You've had 3 interactions with police in your life that you would consider to be violent. All right. So that means most of the time you're not dealing with police at all. So number 1, when you're dealing with police, this applies to everybody. Understand situational power. Do you know what situational power means? Situational power means if you're in the ocean, for example, and a shark grabs you, the shark has the situational power. Why? Because the shark is probably better at swimming than you are, on top of the fact that the shark is an expert at pulling you underwater and ripping you up and eating you. And you probably don't have as much experience beating up sharks as the shark has of attacking its prey and eating it. You need to understand that the shark has a situational power. So Lionel's over there on Instagram. It's according to TikTok's numbers, 142 people watching me here. There's more people on YouTube, more on Rumble, more on X, more on Facebook, and more on LinkedIn. But being that you wanted to leave that comment, we'll get rid of you. So now, instead of there being 4, now there's 3. All right. So with all that said, let me continue where I'm at. If you're on land, for example, and you grab a shark, who has the situational power? Situational power would be yours, because a fish is a fish in water, but outside of water, not so much. So when it comes to police, in a traffic stop, a domestic dispute, when a police officer is working to serve and protect, a police officer has a situational power and you need to respect it. Simple as that. Respect the situational power of a cop. What does this mean? If you get pulled over by a police officer, the police officer, as soon as you pull over and the cop gets out of the car, and as soon as the cop gets out of the car, actually before that, as soon as they turn on the lights and you see it, the cop has situational power. You need to respect the situational power. The same way, even if you think the cop's wrong, even if you think the cop is profiling you because you're a certain color in a certain car in a certain neighborhood, that happens. I've had it happen to me. Even if you believe that, even if you think the cop is wrong, racist, having a bad day, et cetera, the cop has situational power. The same way that when you're at work, how many of you have a boss or a supervisor at work who you don't like the place you work right now or ever in your life? Any of you ever worked at a place where you had a boss or supervisor that you didn't like? Put the word yes in the comments. Any of you ever had a boss or a supervisor who you didn't like? Put the word yes in the comments, whether right now or in the past. Okay, so all of you have had that situation, right? When you were in that situation, as long as you wanted to keep your job, what'd you do? You shut the hell up and you kept working, even though you didn't like the boss, even though you didn't like the supervisor rather. You kept doing what you had to do because you understood that they had the power. They had more power than you did. And if you clashed with them too hard, you might lose your job, which means losing your paycheck, which means losing your ability to pay your bills and take care of your family. So you understood how to work with situational power. All right. How many of you in your life ever had a situation where you were living in your parents' house? You didn't like something that your parents said or did or rule that they had, but you still were able to, swallow your pride, shut up and follow the rules. Of course you did. We all did that. How many of you have ever had a school teacher you didn't like, but you still had to pass that class? Any of you ever played a sport? You had a coach you didn't like. You still did what you had to do. So all of us understand how situational power works. The police are no different. The police are just like your parents. They're just like your boss at work, just like your coach on a sports team. You may not like them or what they're doing or why they're doing it, but if you respect the situational power, usually things don't go that bad. If you respect the situational power. The problem that some of you have, and this especially is true with men who have not been raised by masculine figures in their lives, is that you as a man, you start spouting off at the mouth the way that a woman would, because you haven't had a man set an example for you. But being that you're in a man's body, spouting off at the mouth like a woman, that may cause that police officer to react in a way to you that they wouldn't react to a woman because you're a man, because you're in a man's body. And this leads to many problems. Notice that many of these cases with police and black people is usually a man as the suspect. It's usually not a woman, right? The situation we talked about yesterday with Mr. Floyd, that often when it comes to the police can see the person. I'm not talking about like Breonna Taylor where they couldn't even see who was inside the house. I'm talking about when the police know who they're dealing with, they see the person and it escalates. Usually that's a man. It's usually not a woman that does it. Usually is a man who doesn't understand what I just said, which is situational power. Knowing when to shut the hell up and be quiet. Just be quiet. Give the officer whatever information the officer is asking for. And even if you get a ticket, even if you get arrested, it's not going to go crazy. All right. Just follow whatever they say. And if they're wrong, they're wrong. You go to court and you solve it there. It usually doesn't happen with women. Usually is with men who don't know how to shut the hell up. They don't know how to control their emotions. And this goes back to what we talked about yesterday, which is you need to learn to respect authority when someone else has it. And this usually comes from, for men, having other men around you who can talk to you in a way that you learn to accept it and be quiet, even if you don't like what you heard. Again, your parents starts with your father at home. Then it goes to your school teachers. It can go to your coaches. It can go to your religious leaders. But if you don't have any of these in your life, and then you go out into the world and some man who you don't know says something to you that you don't like, you don't know how to just be quiet and take it. And if that man happens to be a police officer, that can lead to a situation. And this is the reason why I said yesterday, the foundation of all of these challenges we're talking about is not policing, is not giving more money to communities or send a social worker instead of a cop, the ridiculous idea. It's about what do we start as the foundation? How are people being raised? That's where it starts. So respect situational power. This right here, this point right here, if I just said this point, it covers 99% of any possible situation you could ever have with a police officer. Any of you ever engaged with a cop, if you just respect the fact that they have more power than you do, as soon as they walk up to you and make themselves known, at that moment, they have more power than you. If you would just respect that, most problems that people end up having with police would never happen. There wouldn't be anything. Just listen to what they say, even if they're wrong. Again, they say you had a busted tail light, but your tail light's not busted. They say they don't even give a reason for stopping you, and you ask why they stopped you, and they kind of give you a bullshit reason. At that moment, if you start arguing with the cop, you're not respecting situational power, because you only argue with people who are you can argue with someone when you all are equals. You and a cop are not equal during the traffic stop. They have the power, you don't, because they have the power to delay you getting to wherever you were driving to just by making you sit there. Or they have the power to make you get out of the car and sit on the curb. They have the power to take your paperwork and take like 30 minutes to go through your paperwork. Any of you ever got pulled over and the cop was like taking mad long to figure out, what are you doing? Remember, I got pulled over when I was like 19. The cop pulled me over. I gave him the paperwork. Then he went to his car. He was sitting there forever. And I'm like, yo, what are you doing? What are you doing? And this is when I was like 19. I wouldn't do this now. But even then, you got to respect the situational power, folks. Turn to Leslie. What's going on? Good morning. As long as you're respectful of someone else's power, even if they're trying to violate, usually they'll leave you alone. People don't push back if you're not pushing back. See, if you don't resist, people don't push. But this requires a certain level of humility and emotional control, which a lot of people don't have, especially when you're being indoctrinated every day through media that the police are out to get you. See, this is the reason why we got to be taught the right way. Thank you, Irma, for that lightning bolt. Thank you, everybody who's sending the gifts on TikTok. I'm not seeing them while I'm talking, but I appreciate it. Number 2, be political and play the game. When a cop pulls you over, or any engagement with a cop knocks on your door, whatever, be political and play the game. What that means is, again, when you're at work, any of you had a coworker that you don't like, but you still got to deal with them because you're on the same department or whatever. You need something from them. They need something from you. You still figure out a way to get along with them or get along enough to be professional and be cordial and polite, because you know it'll help you do your job. And doing your job is how you get paid, and getting paid is how you take care of yourself. All right, everybody knows how to do this. All right, police is the same thing. Do the same thing with cops. You might hate cops. You might think they're out to hurt you. But if you're polite, deferential, and cooperative, usually you won't have any problems. Simple as that. Polite, deferential, and cooperative, usually you won't have any problems. All right, police officers understand that they are risking their own safety every time they go out into the world, because they're the ones who have to show up when there's something bad happening. They don't know what they're walking into. They knock on somebody's door. They don't know who's going to open that door or how they're going to open the door. You pull somebody over, you don't know what that person's doing inside of that car. Police understand that they're on this level of alert like all day, every day. So if you don't do anything to raise their level of arousal, then usually nothing bad is going to happen to you. Right? If you can just be, again, 3 words, polite, deferential, and cooperative, usually nothing's going to happen. I doubt any of you could tell me you've been in a situation with a cop where you were polite, deferential, and cooperative, and the cop still escalated. If so, those are few and far between. Those usually don't happen. The escalation usually starts with the person trying to engage with the cop as if y'all are on equal footing, when you're not, because they have situational power. Even if they're wrong, they have situational power. Again, your parents have been wrong, but they have situational power because you live in their house. Your boss has been wrong. They have situational power because they're your boss. So again, all of you understand this very well. You've lived it all of your lives. Do the same thing when you're dealing with police. When you get afraid, anxious, and aroused, what happens is you lose access to your skills. This is the reason why mindset matters so much. Is the foundation of what we do at my company, Work on Your Game. Is mindset's the foundation, because when you get mentally unbalanced, what happens is you lose access to many of your abilities. Any of you ever been in a situation where you felt anxious or fearful or nervous, or even angry? When those things happen, what happens is one of the first things that happens is that we get tunnel vision and we lose access to all of our abilities, because that heightened emotion, it basically cuts off our logic. Emotion overpowers logic every day of the week. So when you get emotional, highly emotional for any reason, you lose access to your logic. And this is when people tend to make stupid decisions. Now, I'm not saying emotions are necessarily a bad thing. They are a good thing when they are properly channeled. But when you're anxious, fearful, nervous, or you just get aroused in whatever way because you've been watching TV and some race hustlers told you that the cops are out to get you because of the color you are and the car you drive and where you're from, and then the cop pulls up and you have that on your mind and you start reacting to the cop as if the cop, with this righteous indignation. See, this is how you end up. This is how George Floyd situations happen. People just not understanding the logic of the situation, what I've been explaining to you here. Okay. So I remember One time, it's probably like 2009. I was driving home from a basketball game I was playing here in Miami, and there was a cop who stopped. Like these two cops, you know, how cops drive past each other and they stop and they're talking to each other out the driver's side door. And they did that on the road, and there was only a 2-lane road, so I couldn't get past. And I waited for a moment for them to finish talking, but they just kept talking, even though my car was right there. And I beeped the horn at the cop in front of me, and they both started staring at me. Then they pulled me over, and I ended up getting detained for like an hour. Nothing happened. I think I got a ticket, but they were like looking for a reason to write me a ticket because they couldn't come up with anything, just because I argued with them like, yo, you blocking the road. And the cop was like, well, we're doing official business. I'm like, you're doing official business while blocking the road, which I should not have done. The whole point being, I'm not saying this as a good example. It's a bad example. And had I gotten more, just more aggressive with the cops, it could have ended up in a worse situation. Next, third point. You got 3 options when you're dealing with a wolf. Everybody knows what a wolf is, like the actual animal in the forest. A police officer can become a wolf because, again, I just told you, they have the situational power. All right. If they have a reason that they can come up with, they don't have a reason, they can make a reason for why they pulled you over, why they're coming up to you. Usually when a cop pulls you over, there's another cop that eventually shows up. Any of you ever got pulled over by one cop and then you look up and there's like 3 more cop cars? All right. They just do it just to gang up, just to make sure. All right. Something happens with this first cop. Now the other cop is there and another cop's there. Every time I see a cop pull up, I usually see like 3 more cop cars within a few minutes. 3 more cop cars pull up. All right. So usually they got the numbers advantage on you. They also have weapons that you probably don't have access to. At least all of them put together got more weapons than you have. They all got tasers. They all have pepper spray. They all got guns, and they all know how to use them, or at least we think they know how to use them. They're all trained for this kind of stuff. And they got, for the most part, they have the law on their sides. All right. So they're wolves. And when you're dealing with a wolf, you got a few options. You got 3 options, actually. Number 1, you can attack the wolf. I would suggest you not attack a wolf unless you have the tools to beat it. Number 2, the wolf can attack you. That's also an option. And number 3, you can get the wolf on your side. Now, those are 3 options you got when you come across a wolf. You attack the wolf attacks you, or you get the wolf on your team so that you don't have to do one of those 2. Power and influence, I just told you over and over again. Your energy should, any of you ever heard the phrase when people say something like, my attitude towards you is based on your attitude towards me? Any of you ever said that before or heard it? Any of you ever heard that phrase? Put me in the chat. You ever heard that phrase? I see people saying this. I even see it at people will be at work and they'll have like a sign next to their office, next to the front desk. It'll say, my attitude towards you is based on your attitude towards me, or my energy towards you is based on your energy towards me. Any of you ever heard that phrase or used it? I want to tell you to exterminate this phrase. And Madam Mim, yes, you got it right. Exterminate this phrase. This is an immature phrase. You don't want to be using this, and you don't want to be thinking it anymore either. Now, let's be clear, your energy should never be controlled by other people's behavior. However, at the same time, understand that other people's energy will be controlled by your behavior. So your energy will determine how other people handle themselves, but your energy should not be determined by what other people do. So if another person is a complete jerk, that does not give you license to be a jerk back. Doesn't mean you can't be if you want to. I mean, you can. There are times when it makes sense. But if someone else is being a jerk, you do not have to be a jerk back. At the same time, if you're a jerk to another person, expect them to be a jerk back to you. So what I'm doing is I'm putting all the responsibility on you. That's what I'm doing, in case any of you didn't catch it. Okay. The energy that you put forth is going to lead to the energy that other people have. But the energy that other people have should not have any effect on your energy. That means someone could be a jerk to you. You can still be nice to them. But if you're a jerk to other people, expect them to be a jerk back. Why? Because most people don't understand what I'm explaining here. Most people don't have emotional control. So their energy will be controlled by you, but your energy is not controlled by them. And when you're dealing with police, this is exactly how it is. I'm sure, and some of you can even tell me this. Any of you ever had an engagement with a cop and the cop seemed to be a little bit antagonistic towards you for whatever reason? Maybe they're just having a bad day. Maybe they suspected something of you. Maybe they're just a jerk, and there are jerks in every industry. So maybe they were just a jerk, but you were nice and you were able to kind of diffuse the situation and got away and nothing happened. Any of you ever had that happen? Put yes if you've had that happen. Cop came to you and it looked like the cop was just looking for something. They were just looking for a reason to do something. And you were nice to them and you were able to diffuse the situation and kind of walk away or drive away from the situation completely unscathed. You didn't even get a ticket. You didn't get arrested. And you don't even, it's not even a story to tell. The only story is they were a jerk, or at least it looked like they were trying to be a jerk. But because you were so kind and deferential and cooperative with the cop that they didn't even go as far as writing you a ticket. Any of you ever had that happen? All right. Yes, vast majority of police interactions are peaceful. Yes, they are. Right, exactly. So many of you have had this happen. And I would bet that women can get away with it more often than men, but this is still a thing. Now, you can get pulled over by a cop, and if you are deferential and friendly and cooperative, usually you can talk your way out of the ticket. You don't even have to talk that much. Just be nice. Just be kind. Hey, officer, how can I help you today? Here's my paperwork here, or my license is inside this glove box. Let me open it and get it. That's what I do. When a cop pulls me over, I say, my license is in my pocket. I'm going to reach in my pocket and get it. The cop says, all right. Even just saying that, and the cop don't even watch me that closely, because I've never had a cop put a flashlight on me while I was doing that. If I just say that, my paperwork's in the glove box, I'm going to open the glove box and get it. My license is in my jacket pocket. I'm going to pull it out. And I haven't been pulled over in I can't remember the last time I got pulled over. It's been over a decade since I've been pulled over. And I don't drive that often, but still. The point being, folks, if you are deferential and friendly to a cop, usually the cop will leave you alone. All right. And they have power. They know they have power. And they have a license to sometimes overreach that power. And they will use it if you give them an excuse. This is human nature. This is not about police. This is human nature. If someone has power over you and you're a jerk to them, or you're an asshole, or you're just being a bitch to them because you feel like you can, you're giving them license to overreach the power that they already know that they have, just to show you, oh, you think you can be like that with me? Okay, let me prove to you who actually has the power here. Don't put people in a position to do that to you, because they will. This is human nature. I'm not just talking about police. This is how all human nature works. If you have a boss at work and you know they're the boss and they know they're the boss, and you start mouthing off at the boss as if you and the boss are equals, the boss is going to do something to make sure you are reminded that they have more power than you have. So it would be stupid of you to put them in a position to have to do that. And this is controlled by your behavior, not by theirs, by your behavior. And if you follow my material for any amount of time, you're going to become very clear that everything that we talk about here, we always bring it back to the person in the mirror, because the person in the mirror is the only person we can control. So even if you're dealing with people who are complete idiots, jerks, dumb, bad, nasty, whatever words you want to throw out there, your behavior has more effect on the outcome than their behavior. Why? Because you can't control their behavior. So if a cop is a jerk, there's ways for you to diffuse the situation. When you get pulled over, all of you already know this, especially if it's at night, turn the lights on inside your car, put your hands on the damn steering wheel. Hello, officer, how can I help you? All right, how can I make things easy for you here, officer? All right, have your license, insurance, registration, whatever they're asking for. Either if you don't have it already handy and ready, if the cop asks for it, say, all right, it's in here, it's over here, it's in there. Let me pull it out. Say that, then make sure they heard you. Then you go reach for it. All right. These are things that all of you probably already know. All right, if you're adults, never argue with a police officer. I don't know if this is news to any of you. Never argue with a police officer at the scene of an interaction. If a police officer is questioning you or asking you questions or stopping you or pulling you over, whatever, do not argue with a police officer. First of all, you have a right to remain silent. Remember that. You should use it, because anything you say can and will be used against you. All right. Do not argue with a cop, because first of all, a cop's job is not to interpret the law. That's the judge's job. You go to court to interpret whether the cop is right or wrong, not in the street when you're getting pulled over. That's not when you interpret right or wrong. I don't know if any of you has ever successfully argued down a police officer from a decision that they have made. And you ever had a cop say you're under arrest, and then you argue with them and they said, all right, well, now that you made such a convincing case, you're not under arrest. All right. I don't think that's ever happened. And you have had a cop pull you over and they're going to write you a ticket. If you're nice, then you could probably get out of the ticket. Now, if you're a jerk, they probably will write you a ticket even if they didn't want to. All right. You went 1 mile per hour over the speed limit. Like Jay-Z said in the song, you was doing 55 and a 54. All right. So now I'm going to write you a ticket just for that, just because you were being a jerk. So what Jay-Z said in that song, maybe. Now, he had a different type of circumstance. I would suggest you not do what Jay-Z said in that song, 99 Problems. That'll end up getting you getting beat up like Chris Rock skit, or arrested, or at least getting a ticket. Best case scenario. All right. So it is not the cop's job to interpret the law. The cop's job is to enforce the law as the police officer sees it, not as you see it. Then They write you a ticket or arrest you or whatever it is. Then you call your lawyer. Then you go to court, and the judge interprets whether the police officer was right or wrong. That's how it works. The judge determines whether the cop is right or wrong, not you, and you don't do it there in the street. That's not court. Court is court. The street is the street. The police officer has the power in the street. The judge has the power in court. Everybody understand that? Again, many of you should have been taught this already, but if you didn't know, now you know. And if the cop wrongfully sees you as a suspect or in violation of a rule, like a ticket or an arrest, take a deep breath. Now remember your meditation practice or your mindfulness practice that you use to calm yourself down. Go to the precinct, call your lawyer, and have it handled through your lawyer. That's what you do. All right, that's how it works. If they're really wrong, you can take them to court and you can sue them. All right, after you adjudicate yourself in the court of law. If you are frequenting a place, if you frequent places that seem to draw police attention, how about you stop going to those places? If you really don't want to deal with police. Now, if you live in a place that seems to draw, or not draw, but in which there are a lot of police officers present, if you're not doing anything to get the attention of the cops, usually you get left alone. That's my experience. If you live in a place where the cops seem to hang around a lot, if you're not doing anything to get their attention, you tend to get left alone. Now, if you're doing something that draws police attention, then you ain't got nothing to complain about. You asked for it. You know the consequences of your actions. You know how this works. If you're doing something that would get the police's attention if they knew about it, well, of course, then you're going to get the police attention. What do you want? What are you expecting here? So with all that said, there's more I could talk about. Let's just stop there today. And I'll take comments and questions. And I want you all to tell me what you want me to talk about next, because I got several topics I can talk about. And let me just recap really quickly what I talked about here. Then I'm going to take questions and comments. Then we'll wrap up. So we're talking about full immunity to police. This whole concept of Trump giving immunity to the police, which is, again, I already told you, this is not possible. The president of the United States does not have the constitutional power to give immunity to police, because the police generally are regulated by the states in which they work. They are not regulated by the government. So Donald Trump or any other president in the future, as long as the rules stay the rules, cannot grant immunity to police. But many people got reactive about this because Donald Trump is a good salesperson. He is a master salesperson, and sales is manipulation. So any of you who thinks the word manipulation is a negative thing, no, it's not. Any of you has a husband or wife, a boyfriend or girlfriend, you manipulated them into being with you. You might not consider it manipulation, but you did. You got them to think a certain way about you based on things that you did. You did certain things that made them think a certain way about you. That is manipulation. So any of you thinks being a manipulator is a bad thing, look in the mirror. Now you are guilty. And Trump talks in a metaphorical, directional way in order to paint pictures and plant visuals in the minds of the people who are listening to him, which is everybody. He's not trying to be literal. Many people interpret his words literally because they don't like him. So they take everything he says literally and they try to find fault with it. But this is not the way that he's talking, which is why people end up having, as we call it, TDS, Trump derangement syndrome. I did a whole live about this. And if you are a person who is wary of interacting with police, I'm telling you exactly what to do. Very simple every time you deal with a police officer. First of all, understand situational power that they have that you do not have. Number two, be political and play the game. The same way that you can be nice to your boss, even if you hate your boss. Same way you can be nice to a coworker, even if you don't like them. Same way you can listen to your parents, even if you disagree with them. You know how to play the game. And number three, when you're dealing with a wolf, and a cop is a wolf in a police interaction situation, because they have more power than you, usually got more people than you, they have more weapons than you. And if things get physical, they usually can beat you. There's more of them than there is you. Therefore, you can either attack the wolf, you can have a wolf attack you, or you can get the wolf on your side. The way you get a wolf on your side is to be deferential, friendly, and cooperative, and the wolf won't bother you. Wolves are usually looking for people who want to prove something, and then they get to prove themselves. If you don't fight back, nobody's going to fight you. All that said, folks, let me see what we got in the comments. Keith over on YouTube said, this never happened to me. I live in Portland where it's majorly white. Okay, fair enough. And O-Dog on YouTube said, I'm no liberal, but I was never with the Blue Lives Matter or Back the Blue movement. Police abuse their authority at times. Well, all people abuse their authority. I mean, name one group of people who don't abuse their authority. We could talk about religions. We can talk about bosses. We can talk about men. We can talk women. We can talk, and kids abuse the positions that they have by manipulating their parents and giving them candy when the parents doesn't want to give them candy because the kid won't stop crying in the middle of the store. So everybody abuses their authority at times. As far as Blue Lives Matter or Back the Blue, old dog, again, the whole concept of Back the Blue or Blue Lives Matter is similar to Trump saying full immunity to police. It's a visual that's telling the law-abiding citizens that we support police. We are not with this whole concept of going against the police. You got to remember where Blue Lives Matter and Back to Blue came from. Those things popped up when a lot of people, including Vice President Kamala Harris, were saying, let's defund police, let's take money away from police departments, and let's put the money into something else. So they put themselves on this side of the aisle. So what the Back to Blue and the Blue Lives Matter movements did, whoever started them, whoever you want to give credit for that, they were saying, no, we oppose that. We're not taking money away from the police. We don't have a problem with police. Police need to be able to do their jobs. And we want to let the police know, and the people who support the police and the law-abiding citizens who don't have a problem with the presence of police, we want to let them know we are standing behind them. That's a metaphor. It's not really about, oh, well, every police officer is bad or police can't abuse their authority. You're right that they do. Police can abuse their authority just like anybody else does. But again, Back to Blue and Blue Lives Matter were visuals. They were metaphors. The same way that Black Lives Matter was a metaphor, Blue Lives Matter was a counter metaphor. Because the Black Lives Matter thing, I just talked about this yesterday, it got a ton of attention after the George Floyd situation. All right, that's when it got attention and when everybody was trashing the police. So the counterpoint to that was, well, Blue Lives do matter. Police do matter because, okay, let's just say that those cops in Minneapolis were wrong and bad. What does that have to do with all the rest of the cops? So there is a counterpoint to that point, even if you think those cops were bad. And some people don't. Many people do. We talked about that yesterday. You can watch that replay on YouTube for those of you who didn't see my live yesterday. But there is a counterpoint to trashing the cops. The counterpoint to trashing the cops is supporting the cops. So there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that position of Back to Blue and Blue Lives Matter because cops are people too. They got families, wives, kids, just like everybody else. And they deserve to be backed just the same way that anybody else deserves to be backed. So I had no problem with the Blue Lives Matter concept or movement or whatever you want to call it. Because if people just went on in the summer of 2020, specifically trashing the police as if the police are just terrible and all police are bad people. Well, first of all, what's the end game of that? Let's just say everybody said, all right, well, the cops are terrible, so nobody wants to be a cop anymore. Again, I asked this question yesterday. Any of you who's not a card-carrying Second Amendment supporter and you can't physically fight, what the hell are you going to do if everybody stopped being a cop? What are you going to do? Because if the wolves who live in the low-income neighborhoods realize that there are no cops and therefore no penalties for committing crimes, you know the first place they're coming to the nice neighborhoods. And they're coming to find all of you with all the nice stuff and all the money and all the jewelry and all the whatever they think you have. And those of you who ain't capable of defending yourselves, you're going to be the first ones to get eaten by the wolves. So all you with this whole concept of police are bad. Again, I'm asking, what is your alternative? What's your alternative to the police? So Lady D67 over on Instagram, I see you left a few comments. We'll get to a couple of these. You writing paragraphs in my comments. I'm gonna read some of these, not all of them. And Lady D said, once Trump's in office and even his cabinet, they putting his cabinet together, who have people to change the laws all set up to make I don't go with that, Lady D. They can't change the law. The Senate and the House of Representatives are the only people who can make laws. Cabinet does not make laws. So you started off, Lady D, you started off on the wrong foot over here on Instagram with all these long comments you're leaving because that first one is logically inaccurate. Say they want to say immunity and going to enable to what? New police will be pulling people over, shaking them down. Lady D, you over here talking crazy. I'm looking at these comments on Instagram. This person over here talking crazy. No, I can't. Lady D, we can't do this. Come on. You gotta do better than this. You left all these comments, and these are not based in anything logical or rational or even factually accurate. Someone said, Lady D over here talking about slavery. Lady D, you need to write a book. You can just take all your comments, copy, paste them, put them into a Google Doc, and you got a good rough draft here. But these things you're saying don't make any sense. No, I can't do it. All right, let's go over to Instagram. All right, I mean, not Instagram, TikTok. Let's go over to TikTok comments. Today we are talking police immunity. So, twisted trails of life. How do you explain history telling us the cops treat people differently based on skin color? History telling us? What do you mean by that? And what do you mean, how do I explain it? I don't have to explain it. If you believe that's true, all right, let's say it's true. My answer to that is so. Now what? Twisted trails of life. Let's just say that that's true. I'm not verifying that it's true. I'm not affirming it, But let's just say that what you're saying is true. The cops treat people differently based on their skin color. My response to you is based on everything that I just said. So what? What does that have to do with anything? Let's say cops treat you differently because you're black. What does that mean? What are you going to do next time a cop pulls you over? Are you going to do something different than what I've prescribed here today? Did I give you some bad advice? So what you're asking is a non sequitur. There's no following between what you're saying and the things that I said here today. Peace said, I invoked a safe harbor for protection against termination and retaliation. What does that mean? Quanot76 said, you can respect it, but once again, they abuse their power. How? How do they abuse their power? Are you talking about police here, or are you talking about somebody else? Anyone can abuse power. Again, anyone who has a position of power can and will abuse that power. What you need to do, if you're the person who is not in power and you're dealing with a person who is in power, is you must respect the fact that they have the power. And if they see you respecting the fact they have the power, generally they leave you alone. I just explained this. This is what you do when you come across a wolf. You can attack the wolf can attack you, or you can get the wolf on your team. Those are your three options. What do you want to do? So a wolf can abuse his power and eat you alive. Or if you get the wolf on your team, maybe feed it some food so it doesn't have to eat you for food, then the wolf will like you and it'll be your friend and it will actually defend you instead of attacking you. All right. These are just the options that you have. So I want to know, Quant76, what are you referring to? X Phantom said, why don't you use the word authority? I just used it. All right. So Ranking Joe said, you don't have much time left. Are you talking to me? Time for what? Twisted Trail says it's different when the disrespect is based on skin color only. How do you respect that? So Twisted Trails are like, I'm assuming that you're a black male, because this is the kind of language that black males use all the time. Black males seem to have this obsession with the term respect. Black males talk about respect a lot. Any of you who's black, who's from the community, you know this very well. Women as well. Females, I'm not saying females with respect, but if you're black and you're from the neighborhood, you know the males are always talking about respect. So first of all, respect is commanded. It is not demanded. To demand something means to make somebody do something. It's like your boss demanding that you get some work done by the end of the day that you don't want to do. Commanded is when you carry yourself in such a way that you get the thing without trying. So when you're trying to demand respect, that means you're putting yourself in an antagonistic position against whoever you're trying to get the respect from. And as opposed to commanding, when you carry yourself in such a way that people want to respect you because of the way that you carry yourself. And the challenge in the black community, this happens all the time, is that a lot of black men go out into the world trying to demand respect from other men. And that leads to intra-racial issues between men, black men. We talked about this yesterday. Most violent interactions that happen where a black man ends up compromised is by the hands of another black male civilian, not the police. And then interacting with police, where a black man is trying to demand respect from a person who doesn't have to give you respect because they have much more power than you have. But because of this obsession with respect, we end up putting ourselves in bad positions. So what you're talking about here is disrespect based on skin color. So let's say a cop disrespects you based on your skin color. Is that a crime? Twisted Trails of Life is not a crime. And disrespect is not a crime. So if someone disrespects you based on your skin color, you may not like it. And you have the option to respond if you want to, or react if you will. But it's not a crime. Therefore, you would be in the wrong. So if you're walking down the street and a white person calls you the N-word and you beat them up, you're the one who's going to get arrested, and you're the one who's going to have to go to jail for that crime. The crime is you beating them up. The crime is not what they said to you. People can say whatever they want to say to you, and it's not a crime. And again, if you carry yourself in such a way that commands respect, usually you don't have those kind of things happen to you. That's my answer to your question. So hopefully that helps you out there. User 218 said, we have rights for a reason. What is that referring to? Stacy says, act respectfully, and 9 times out of 10, you will receive respect. Exactly. I would say 99 times out of 100. Baz Forever says, stereotype is never good. Okay, fine. Stereotyping is not a crime. And by the way, Baz Forever, every human being stereotypes. Everybody stereotypes people. You may not consider yourself to be stereotyping, but we all do it. If you're walking down the street late at night and you see a bunch of males walking around with hoodies all up over their heads, you have a an instant thought about who those guys might be and what they might be doing, and that will lead to a response from you. That is a stereotype. You cross the street, you're stereotyping him. And if you see the same group of men, but they're all in business suits walking down the street, walking towards you, and you can see their faces very clearly, you have a different type of response. That's a stereotype. There's a certain view that you have in your mind of who they are and what they might be about just based on a snap judgment. So we could say stereotyping is never good, but you had to point the finger at yourself first. User said the police need to control their emotions. I didn't say that. Straw man question. Quant says, even when you control your emotions, they still will abuse their power. Okay. Tell me when's the last time it happened to you? Quant out 76. Royalty says, so the police respect Black people is what you are saying. The police is a very wide term. I say people respect people who carry themselves respectfully. That's what I would say to your straw man question. Stacy Lee says, as our culture falls into corruption, the amount of power becomes more necessary. I don't know what that means. E says, it's comical you say that as a Black man. What did I say? Let's see. Debbie Meeks says that makes a lot of sense. I don't know what you're referring to, but thank you. Someone, Quanat says, have you considered the fact that some cops are just racist and mess with you for no reason? Again, when does it happen to you? When's it happen to you? How many police interactions have you had this year just based on a racist cop messing with you for no reason? Let's just give me a number, if you want to be honest. Let's see. I'm taking questions. I'm on TikTok right now looking at questions and comments. P said, this is the word for the hood. Respect situational power. Yes, if people just did that, then most of these imagined problems that many of you are throwing out there, imaginary problems that never even happened. Oh, the police are going to do this. They're going to do that. When is it actually happening to you? So this is those of you who are not from the hood and those of you who are white who are listening to me right now. See, this is the kind of nonsense that a lot of Black people throw around and race hustlers throw around in order to control you, non-Black people, people who are not from the hood. And they tell you all these terrible things that happen to them or might happen to them because they're Black and because they're from the hood. And the police are going to do this, that, and the third. Most of these mofos in the comments here saying these things never deal with police, have had no police interactions this year. None of these things happen. They're throwing out these hypothetical situationals. But you as a white person, if you were to say to them, does this ever actually happen to you? They would call you racist. See, they can't say that bullshit to me. And this is why I'm calling them out on their nonsense. And a lot of Black people use this stuff as a offensive weapon. This is the reason why that BLM that I talked about yesterday was so popular from 2020 through 2021, because we had a visceral example with the Floyd situation and nobody could push back against that. But as a whole, as a general idea, this is not something that happens on a daily basis, not even a monthly basis or a yearly basis to most of these people. But again, Black people go throwing this around because this victimhood thing actually works. This is the reason why I talk about the race hustlers. This works. All right. It works very well. And when you're talking to people who ain't Black, who ain't from the hood, who can't say anything back to you, you could just keep saying this stuff and people got to listen to this bullshit. I know most of y'all talking a bunch of shit that has never happened to you, but it sounds good when you're talking to people who can't push back. I can push back. So thank you, Brittany, getting us up to, we're at 6.9K likes. I don't know if people like what I'm talking about here today. Rankin Joe said, I will send you a gift, but I don't like your attitude. Well, Joe, that's all right. I will live without your gift. Keep the gift. All right, Christy, I appreciate the rose. Just as you're saying it, just as I'm reading that. Thank you, Morgan, for the gift. So, Joe, I think your gifts got replaced by other people's gifts. Eli Ortiz said, they cannot get me for that. They arrested me to deport me and my daughter because something about Puerto Rico. I don't know what you're referring to there. Quant said they didn't do that with Sonia Massey and she wasn't even a threat. Okay. Fine. If that's the way you see it, fine. But exceptions prove the rule. Again. And this is, again, white folks who are listening to this is exactly what I mean. If you were to even try to push back against one of these folks who are telling you this, what they'll do is they'll pull up these once in a blue moon examples. And then you can't push back against the example. And then therefore, that means you have to accept their entire argument. An example does not prove an argument. An example supports an argument. It does not prove an argument. So if I pull out the examples of, I can name you 10 people or 20 people who have had something unjust done to them by police, and you think it was because of their skin color, those examples support the argument that you're saying, well, police do bad things to people because of their skin color. That does not prove the argument. There's a difference between supporting an argument and proving it. And you cannot prove an argument with an example. If I say it's always rainy and cold in Miami and you say, no, it's not. And I say, well, look, it's rainy and cold right now in Miami. That's an example. It's real. It's a fact. Does it prove the argument? No, it doesn't. So let's see. Nut Squawk said, you are confidently wrong. Okay. Always. So why you keep coming back? If I'm wrong, why you keep listening to me? Go listen to somebody who's right. Or even better, what you should do is your own live and take everything that I said that's wrong, and then you just share the right version of it, and let's see how many people care what you have to say. My theory is that nobody would care what you had to say, which is why you're here. But if I'm wrong, you can let me know. Actually, don't let me know. Do your live and prove me wrong. Now, there's proof right there. Madam said, incorrect. I've people be compliant and still get taken down. Okay. Again, out of how many? Out of 100 police interactions, how many people are completely compliant and they still get violence happen to them by police? Out of 100, how many happen? Madam Mim. And the other thing, the pernicious thing about this whole conversation about police is that people can tell you, well, I seen people do this and this happened to them, and they can't prove it. You can't disprove it. So it just becomes this kind of hearsay thing. So Royalty said loud and wrong. Well, I am loud. But what am I wrong about? If I'm wrong, tell me what I'm wrong about. Point it out. Someone said more than half of the comments disagree. So a bunch of people disagreeing with something does not make it wrong. That's called the bandwagon fallacy. So Ranking Joe, thank you for pointing that out. Bandwagon fallacy is when someone says a bunch of people have the same opinion, so that means the opinion must be right, or a bunch of people disagree with something, so that means it must be wrong. That's called the bandwagon fallacy. Ranking Joe, assuming you're a black guy, there was a whole bunch of people who agreed with slavery. Does that mean slavery was a good idea? So you see how quickly these people's logical fallacies fall apart when you can point them out and throw them back at them. And if any of you had better presentation and better information or theories than I did, why are you in my comments instead of doing your own live? You should just compete against me. I go live 8 a.m. Monday through Friday. So tomorrow when I go live, you do a live, and let's see how mine does versus how yours does. And then we'll find out really quickly who knows their stuff better, me or you. All right, so let's see. Earl says it's always your fault. It's your responsibility. It may not be your fault, but it's your responsibility. So directionally, you got it right. They were out to get me that night. All right, Eli Ortiz, I got it. You keep telling me that. What does that have to do with anything? Your personal example, your personal experience example is not proof of argument. So I get it, whatever it is that you're saying, the cops were out to get you. I don't doubt you. All right, I'm going to accept your story. I don't know who you are, but let's just accept your story as true. What does it have to do with the overall point that I'm making here today? P said, we have the power to keep the cop calm by being calm in emotional control and logical. Yes, we do. Again, even if the cop's trying to be bad, if you don't get them something to push back against, they usually don't push. Madam Mim said, I'm from Florida. You're from Florida. You know better. What does being from Florida have to do with it? Florida is a huge state. To drive from one part of Florida to another part of Florida would take like 10 hours. So just because we're both from Florida has nothing to do with anything. Madam said, imagine a doctor fabricating a reason for something because you were mean to him. What does that have to do with anything? You all, the logic that I'm seeing in some of these comments, they're not adding up. Earl said it's never the police's fault. It can be the police's fault. That's why you go to court. If the police is at fault, then you take them to court. That's what you do. If anybody's at fault, it doesn't have to be a cop. If a person's at fault and they did something wrong to you, you take them to court and you prove it in court, either criminal court or civil court. That's the reason why we have courts. America is the most litigious society in America. There are lawyers all over the place. If someone did you wrong, you take them to court. That's what you do. Joe says, you lost me challenging the mainstream media. Well, I'm happy to lose you, Joe. If challenging the mainstream media goes against the grain of how you see things, then you're right. We should be on opposite sides. They're not perfect, but doing what they can. What? Are you serious? All right, Joe. Well, at least you let us know where you stand. And I'm good with that. I'm good with us not being in agreement on that. Definitely on that one. Quant says they are already the wolves. Seems you need to be talking to the cops, not us. I just told you they're wolves. I already said that. They're wolves. I said the cops are wolves. They know that they're wolves. They know the power that they have. And I said this, I think I said it 3 times. When someone else has power, they will use it if you give them a reason to prove to you that they have power, because you're acting like you don't believe they have power. If you talk to your boss as if you have as much power as your boss is going to show you that you don't. That's how it works. Stacy. Let's see. You're doing a lot of talking. Why should anyone even think to have immunity? Princess Walker asked. Well, you must have came in late, Princess, because I made clear that Trump is talking metaphorically and directionally, not literally, and factually. Legally, it's impossible for the police to be granted immunity by the president of the United States, because police are controlled by the state, not by the federal government. So you're asking a question that is a non sequitur. It does not follow. You're asking a false question. Let's see. Ryan said police already have qualified immunity. Yes, I did say that as well. Princess said Trump asking the Supreme Court to give him immunity. Why? I haven't mentioned anything about that here today. So again, false question. We call that a red herring. Red herring fallacy is when you throw something out into a conversation that would change the direction of the conversation and take the person you're talking to completely off the point that they were already on. So Princess, nice try, but that won't work over here. All right, let's see. Princess said, no person should have qualified immunity for everything. Answer that. No, I'm not going to answer that. I just explained to you, use the red herring. Now you just use a second red herring. And I'm reading these comments to show you all this is what people do when they're emotionally thrown off or they really, really disagree with the point. Instead of actually addressing the point that you've made, they try to change the subject into something that you didn't say and then ask you to respond to that. It's also called a straw man question. Straw man is when you take something that somebody said, change it into something that they didn't say, and then you challenge that and then say, well, respond to that. Well, I didn't say that, so I don't have to respond to it. Grand Queendom says, be afraid of them like our parents taught us from birth, like all black parents have. What's new? No, it's not about being afraid of them, Grand Queendom. When's the last time you had an interaction with a police officer? And were you afraid? And if so, your parents taught you wrong. So you should go to your parents and question them about that. Stacey said, yes, made me get out of my truck for no reason. I was completely kind. And then what happened? Ross said they have way too much immunity now. They've always had the same amount of immunity, so it hasn't increased or decreased. Ryan said vast majority of police interactions are peaceful. Yes, they are. Obi, appreciate you. Earl said just give up your rights. And Isaiah right after said Earl's a victim. And again, folks, I don't think most of the people you see in the comments making these sarcastic responses, they don't believe this stuff. They don't live like this. I mean, it sounds good on social media, but I got to remember social media is not real life. Things sound good on social media, and then people go out in their lives and they do exactly what I'm saying here today. This is how they live. But on social media, it sounds, oh, you're wrong. Yeah, right. Yet they keep watching. They keep leaving comments, right? If I'm so wrong, you would just stop listening to me. If I'm listening to someone and I know that they're wrong, I just turn it off and go find somebody who knows what they're talking about. But if I really don't know what I'm talking about, why are you still listening? That's what I want to know. If you have a CC that usually, what's a CC, Stacy? Appreciate you, Isaiah. Quanat says, it's sad I have to give my black sons a talk in regards to police when pulled over. No, it's not. Why is that sad? Every parent needs to give their kids a talk about how to deal with authority, period. Whether it's, I'm going to give my kids a talk about how to deal with teachers if they go to school, how to deal with coaches if they play sports, how to deal with their bosses if they get a job, and how to deal with the cops if they get pulled over, and how to deal with other adults in the neighborhood. I'm going to teach my kid, you show respect to this adult over here. Their name is Mr. or Mrs. You don't just call them by their first name because they're older than you, and you're going to show them respect. When you go to school, you're going to show your teachers respect. When you play a sport, you're going to respect your coaches. If you get pulled over by a cop, you're going to respect the cop. And if you get a job, you're going to respect the boss. I'm going to teach my kids the same thing about authority that I would teach them about anybody in position of authority. So there's no sad thing about giving black sons to talk. Let me ask you a question. Any white parents in here, do you give your kids a talk about how to deal with police? Please put the word yes in the comments if you are white and you have talked to your kids about how to deal with police, because this whole concept of only black people tell their kids how to deal with police is complete nonsense. Any parent, you should be teaching your kid how to deal with a person who has more authority than you have. And so this whole idea of only black people do this is complete bullshit. And I know it is, and I'm not even white, but let the white people speak. Let the white people tell me if I got that right or wrong. Let's see. Obi said, I always tell my brothers and sisters the judge has the final decision. Exactly. Even if the cop is wrong, the judge gets the final decision. Mary Lou said, what about the Chevron case? I never mentioned the Chevron case, so I'm not talking about it. Brittany says, I've trained my kids and created cards of what to do if pulled over step by step. Exactly. But well, now, Brittany, you're black, and I want to hear the white people tell me, do I have this right or wrong? White people, do you not tell your kids anything about cops? They're just going to figure it out, or do you tell them how to deal with cops? Let's see. Mario Solera says, so I can't drive a nice car. What does that mean? What are you referring to there, Mario? Thank you, peace. Let's see. Obi said they just need the excuse. Maybe it depends on the person. Maureen 357 said, you all wrong, dude. The way they going at this point, they about to throw the Constitution out the door. Well, they tried that during the campaign. Were you paying attention? They've been saying that about Trump since 2015. And clearly people don't believe it. So how many times are you going to keep repeating the same thing that nobody believes? You're a slow learner. You must work in the mainstream media or for the Democrats. They've been saying the same thing for 10 years and it hasn't worked. At what point do you get the point? All right, this cognitive dissonance. Erica said, I get so nervous even being around a cop. I just stay polite and quiet unless I'm asked something. I don't know why. Well, I know why you get nervous. Probably you've been trained to get nervous. Unfortunately, you should be mad at the people who taught you to be nervous. I'm not nervous around a cop because I ain't doing nothing that would get me into trouble with a cop. So I'm not doing anything or I don't have anything on me that would get me into any type of police trouble. Then I have no problem with cops. I told them, say yes, sir, no, sir. Yeah, exactly. Which how, and there are many kids who are taught by their parents to say yes, sir, no, sir to everybody they talk to. I talk to people who are younger than me. Like I'm 42 years of age. I talk to people as a coach. I'm not a cop. As a coach, I talk to people in their 20s and they will respond. I'll ask them a question. They'll say yes, sir, no, sir to me. I don't tell them to say that to me. That's the way they were taught by their parents. White people say that. So this is not some black thing that only black people talk to their kids about cops. Y'all are, many of you think that, but this is not a thing. Nut Squawk says, yapping, that's all you do. Well, I'm on this live stream. Yes, yapping is all I do. That is literally what I'm doing. I'm yapping. But you're watching. So watching is all you do, and yapping is all I do. So, hey. So, let's see. Truth Seeker said, courts are corrupt. I can understand that view. I would say stay out of court. That's what I would say. Someone asked, what's my view on Trump's tariffs on imported goods? I can't mention the names of those countries. What's my view on it? That's not the topic here today, so I can't respond to that. So Wiley said, are you saying you haven't seen multiple examples of them dealing with minorities differently? So I'm glad you posted this comment. You pinned this comment here, Brittany. So everybody look at this pinned comment by Wiley. First of all, this is a tell for cognitive dissonance. It's a tell for a straw man argument. So a straw man argument, one of the tells for a straw man is when somebody says something and then a person responds by saying, so you're saying, or are you saying? So you see these first three words in Wiley's comment, are you saying? That's a tell that someone's about to rephrase what you said into something that you didn't say. And then they're going to ask you a question and get you to respond to what they want to talk about as opposed to what you were actually talking about. Everybody see that? This is a prime example right here. Brittany, if you could keep this pen for another minute, if you can. And this is a prime example of someone using a straw man or a red herring to change the subject. Never once in this live did I say I have not seen examples of things. I just said about 5 minutes ago, examples do not prove arguments. So I don't have to answer the rest of that question. And this is how a lot of people don't understand. A lot of people don't have argumentation skills because they will rephrase something that you said into something that you didn't say and then asking, am I saying, this is what Wiley says, you haven't seen multiple examples of them dealing with minorities differently. So first of all, let's just say I did address this. First of all, how do you know it's different? How do you know the way a cop deals with a minority is different how they deal with a white person? Because you can only be one or the other. You can't be black and white at the same time, or at least not to them. So what makes it different? How do you know it's different? And examples, again, do not prove arguments. So there, I just knocked out your flimsy question that is rife with logical fallacies. So you could try again, Wiley, if you can come up with a better worded question. So the white people in here have overwhelmingly responded that they still talk to their kids about how to deal with people in authority, such as cops. So black people, if y'all thought only you talk to your kids about cops, here's your example of that. That's not the case. So people ask me about Trump tariffs. That's not the topic here today. So stop posting that question. I'm not dealing with that today. Let's see. Just the Fact says yes, and I was a law enforcement officer. Rita says yes. Just be respectful if pulled over. Yes. Tadpole says, how is it different? How is what different? I need context here. What's it? You'll see that I'm reading like 100 comments. So if y'all leave a comment, you have to give me context as to what exactly you're talking about. Because by the time I see your comment, I may have already moved on from the thing that I said that you responded to. Half Hispanic, half white, and yes, I talk to my kids. Mike A said that. Yes. Respect authority. Correct. Respect the law, period. Exactly. So again, black folks, if y'all want to know if this is a black thing, it's not a black thing. Everybody does it. Black people talk about it as if we invented the shit. We did not invent telling people to respect authority. LMK said, I told him to shut up and let the police talk. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, I missed the rest of that. But yes. Oh, there it is. Yes, sir. Yes. Yes, sir. No, sir. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. That's correct. Exactly. Angel says, I got a ticket 2 weeks ago, sat in the front seat of a police car chatting, and he reduced my ticket. That's interesting. I never heard about sitting in the front seat of a police car. That's interesting. All right. Congrats to you. Tadpole said people need to stop listening to the media. Yes, that's one thing you can do. The mainstream media. This is technically media, but you need to stop listening to the mainstream media because they're poisoning a lot of you all's minds, and they've done this for years to a lot of people, unfortunately. Amazing Lady said, I'm Latina. I've never had to teach my kids how to be around cops. Well, you never had to. Well, no such thing as having to. You just chosen not to. I would say, Amazing Lady. What makes you have to? I don't have to teach my kids. If I don't want to do it, I just won't do it. I could say the same thing. I teach my kids how to deal with authority, period. And the cops just happen to be people of authority. But what do you teach your kids? If you're not teaching them how to be around cops, what do you teach them? Respect garners respect. That's correct. AU Hunter. Yes, sir. No, sir. Sir shows respect. Yes, it does. Exactly. My Mama D says my children always address yes, sir, yes, ma'am. Yeah, see, a lot of people teach their kids that when you're talking to someone who is older than you or in a position of authority above you, that you, yes, sir, no, sir, et cetera, et cetera. Black people and people of other races. Jen said, I say yes, sir, no, sir to everyone. Cashier at the store, the police, clients. Exactly. Layla said, police officers need to be respected. They are the law, and not all are corrupted. They do need to be respected. They enforce the law, is what I'll say about the law. They're part of the law. They enforce it. They could be wrong, though, and that's why you go to court. That's why we have the court system. Cindy said, you make a lot of sense. Thank you for yapping. LOL. Appreciate you. Thank you. Yes, yapping is what I'm doing here. So anybody who says I'm yapping, yes, I am. That's what this is. Beauty and Healing said, my kids are taught manners and respect. We teach them to communicate effectively with everyone. That's right. And being respectful to other people usually puts them at ease and they'll be nicer. Ranking Joe says, logical fallacy is your go-to expression, but it works both ways. Your interpretations are fallacious. Well, tell me what I got wrong. Tell me what I got wrong. If I got it wrong, point it out. I'm open to me being wrong about me calling something a fallacy. Tell me what I did that was fallacious. I'm open to hearing it. Wiley says examples do prove differences, but examples do not prove arguments, is what I said. Examples can prove differences. Yes. It's raining today in Miami. It's sunny tomorrow in Miami. Yes, that's a difference. So I'm not arguing with that. And that's not what I said. Examples do not prove arguments. So if your argument is that the police do this, you can't just give me examples. You have to prove it. To prove something is beyond a reasonable doubt. That's the way it works in the legal system. But again, not the point. Let's see. Over on Instagram, Swiftly44. Do you envision a future where the victim mentality stops? No. Saying that so many people are paid for pushing this agenda. Well, you answered your own question. No, it's not going to stop. Let's see. Voltaire on YouTube said, you better say, yes, sir, master also. Tell them that must be a Trump supporter. Okay, well, again, this is a straw man point, and you're using Trump supporter as a pejorative, as a way of framing your disagreement with my perspective. If you have something actually logical to say it, whatever it is. Gerard says, explain how qualified immunity fits into this. Straw man question, red herring. I didn't say anything about qualified immunity. All I said was that police already have qualified immunity. That's the only mention that I used of that term this entire time. Theodore says, cops tell their own kids don't talk to cops. Yes, well, everybody has the right to not talk to a cop. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. Everybody's heard that phrase before, right? Everyone has the right to not talk to cops. Justin says, I think the hard thing about speaking on police immunity is that some folk have maybe 1 or 2 encounters with police every 5 years. The problem is that each issue involving is situational. Yes, it is. But people take situations that they weren't even in and they make them into quote unquote proof of what they think. Most of you don't even deal with cops at all, but you're talking about it as if it's an everyday thing. Let's see. I'm back to TikTok looking. Wiley said it's not the same conversation. That's my point. No, exactly. So the conversation here today is about what I said it was about. So if you want to have a different conversation, I give you the same invitation I gave to that other person. Do your own live. You could compete against me. I go live 8 a.m. Monday through Friday. You do one, I'll do one, and we'll see how many people want to hear what you have to say versus how many people want to hear what I have to say. And it'll be very clear. And that will be proof. Wiley said, over the years, I've seen multiple videos of proof and multiple verdicts proving my point. Okay, then why are you in the comments? You should be doing a live. You should be doing a live extolling your point. Why are you in my comments? Again, I just gave you the invitation. 8 a.m. tomorrow, you do one, I'll do one, and we'll see how that goes. So let's see. Someone said the Constitution, since we became a corporation. Interesting. Not what I'm talking about here today, so I'm not going to go into that. Beauty and Healing says, as a correctional officer, the mindset of police being bad was reiterated from white and black inmates. Okay, that's fine. Again, I'm not arguing against your personal experience. I don't think I ever said that. So good morning, D. Marie. Good to see you. All right, we're at 11K likes. Thank you, Brittany. Why we said video evidence is proof. No, it's not. Video evidence is not proof. Because I can, just like what happened with Mr. Floyd in Minneapolis, you could see the 1-minute video or you could see the 30-minute video. Let me ask a question. Everybody saw both videos. Were they 2 different stories? Let me ask a question. All right. Yes or no? Put in the comments. When the George Floyd video came out in 2020, there was a 1-minute video that came out, and then there was a 30-minute video. If you saw both videos, did those 2 videos tell 2 different stories? Yes or no? So we can address Wiley's point. He said video evidence is proof. So let's see. Ranking said, I respect you, but we're disagreeing on major points. So Ranking Joe and everybody else in these comments, if you and I disagree on major points, I'm the one who's controlling this live. So I end up winning because I got the situational power. Didn't I just explain this to you all? I got the situational power because this is my life. We're not equals. All due respect. Pete said, how do you handle a supervisor calling an employee girl or boy? I've never had that happen. So I would say have a conversation with the person. That's what I would say. Amazing Lady said, I guess we're rephrasing comments here within the character limits. Yes, I understand it. That's a communication skill to be able to get your point across with fewer words than with more words. It's hard to do. I understand. Beauty said, I'm just stating the mindset of having to fear the police isn't race related. Well, yeah, I mean, yes, I get what you're saying, Beauty and Healing. The challenge is everybody has a race, and black people have been taught this for decades, for generations. So they never experienced not being black. So, I mean, you could say that logically, but emotionally, people won't accept it. The reality is we all have good and bad experience with cops, and I'm white. Yes, that's a good point. Fair enough. Someone said, are you the guy in the video? I'm the guy in the video right now. I don't know what video you're talking about, but yes, whatever video you're talking about, the answer is probably yes. Whatever video that is. So Again, everybody here is saying yes. All right, so there's more than one George Floyd video, different videos, but they give two different stories. So there, Wiley, hopefully that answers your question there. Rankin Joe says, how about we set up a live side by side? I just told you. I go live 8 a.m. You go live at 8 a.m. and we'll see how yours does and we'll see how mine does. Side by side, what do you mean? You mean like you joining my live? Why? What do you bring to the table that I don't? I don't need you, if that's what you're asking. But you can do your own live, and I'm not going to ask to join it, nor will I leave a comment. All right, let's see. Quick says this guy thinks he's smarter than he is. Yeah, I probably do. I'll accept that. All right, let's see. All right, I think I went through everything. And I'm being tongue-in-cheek there, but it's not about me being smart. I'm not telling you things that are – I'm not giving you information here. For the most part, I'm not giving you all information. I'm giving you a perspective based on information that we generally agree on the information. What we're disagreeing on is the interpretation of the information. So it's not about me having more info than all of you have. Everybody has access to information. We all got access to the same info. It's just a matter of how we choose to interpret it and what we choose to do with that interpretation. That's what I do. That's what I bring to the table. That's what I do professionally. And again, any of you who disagrees with the way that I do it, again, do yours and let's see how yours goes. As simple as that. All right, you see what I'm doing. And let's see you do the same thing and do it better than me. And I'll say, hey, you do it better than me. I'll take it. So I do these lives, as I said, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern. We usually, other question I got to ask. What should I talk about tomorrow? Because I got a lot of things I could talk about, but I usually do current events here. So what should I talk about? What topic do y'all want to hear me talk about next that I have not already addressed? So I have one where I'm going to talk about the mainstream media and why they're falling apart. I will do that one, but any other topic that y'all want to hear me talk about, please tell me what it is. Then we'll wrap this up in a moment. Over on YouTube, Justin said, late to the convo. What is the policy for police immunity being pushed? There isn't any policy being pushed. That was just a campaign statement that Trump made. He can't actually do it. He can't give immunity to police. The president does not have that power. So it's a metaphorical statement. Watch the replay and you'll hear me explain it. So what do y'all want to hear me talk about? Someone said Jack Smith. Well, what about him? I mean, he just dismissed the case. So I don't know what else to say about him. I don't know if there's enough material to fill up a live to talk about that. Angelica, 2008. What's going on? Good to see you. What about Jack Smith? AU Hunter says UAPs. What is UAPs? What are you referring to? You could probably spell that out. Someone said reprobution versus accountability. What about it? My YouTube is just look at my name. My name is Dre Baldwin. I'm on YouTube right now. So it's Dre Baldwin. D-R-E, last name is Baldwin. My YouTube screen name is Dre UPT. But if you just look my name up, I'm easy to find. Mainstream media. Media recommendations. Okay. Media recommendations is a good one. How to unplug from the M-word. I don't know if I can say that M-word because that bald-headed guy who used to be a kickboxer, he says that all the time. They don't like that guy over here. So I don't know if I can say that name. Okay. Well, that'll be part of the mainstream media. So I think tomorrow we'll do mainstream media. So what's today? Tuesday? Yeah, tomorrow we'll do mainstream media. It seems like y'all, generally, from what I'm seeing, y'all want to hear me talk about that. I'll talk about why the mainstream media is falling apart and what mistakes they did make and what mistakes they keep making. The problem right now is that they keep making the same mistake, even though it's obvious the mistake is hurting them, but they keep doing the same things. So we'll talk about that tomorrow's live. Workonyourgameuniversity.com. Y'all want to work with me directly. AU said unidentified anomalous phenomenon. I don't even know what that is, so I'm not talking about that. So I'm not doing a whole live on that because I don't even know what that is. AU Hunter, you might need to do your own live on that one because you probably have more information than I got. Someone said Trump's cabinet. I might do that one once we're more clear on who's going to be in it because he's nominating people and then they're saying no and yes, and we don't know who's going to be in it yet. But I'll fit that into the mainstream media. I'll talk about that tomorrow because I'm going to touch on some people that we already know they had their names up there. They've been talked about. So we'll talk about that from that angle. But tomorrow, 8 a.m. Eastern, everybody, I'm going to get this wrapped up by 10 o'clock. So I appreciate everybody's time and attention here. Hit me in a DM or go to workonyourgameuniversity.com if you want to learn more about working with me directly. My assistant usually watches the DMs or I will see it, one or the other. My email address is also in my bio over here. Is my bio on not LinkedIn, but YouTube is also in what's this app called? TikTok. Someone said about the debt. What about it? I talked about that when I did the live on why the middle class is going away. So I talked about the middle class going away. That's when I did that one, AU Hunter. So you can find that one on YouTube. I gotta go to the bathroom. Like, really, I gotta get out of here. Everybody have a great day. Work on your game.